Here's the question. Are blue light blocking glasses a legitimate tool for better health, or are they snake oil, fashioned from glass and plastic?
Blue light blocking glasses, have you heard of those?
Glasses that block the blue light that's emitted from our devices.
We researched the history, the science, and the market, and we spoke with two of the world's leading sleep scientists, Professor Michael Gradisar and Professor Matthew Walker. We also talked to the YouTuber and investigative journalist Scott Carney, and we came away surprised by the sheer lack of evidence supporting the marketed health claims and corrupt ties between manufacturers of these glasses and world-famous health influencers.
What time you put those glasses on?
3 hours before bed.
Oh my God.
That's what's keeping me awake.
That's one of the things. And that's definitely one of the things that's keeping
I gotta
me
start watching orange television.
The brightness of light is what's important. It's not about the blue.
He was one of us. He knew the rules when it came to being a scientist. And then over time, I realized he was being deceptive. His old version is correct. The new version is absolutely incorrect. What happened to him?
Red lenses that filter out short wavelengths of light that activate the cells that wake you up.
That's why I just don't do those types of endorsements.
I'm Sebastian Barbera. We're Intero. We build medical technology, and we want to have a positive impact on the state of healthcare in this country. I am sick of the health grift. We want to set a better example by doing journalism instead of marketing. It's a tall order. Let's see if we can pull it off. Blue light glasses have exploded as a wellness fad. In 2024, the BluBlocker market was already worth nearly $2.8 billion, and it's expected to double over the next decade.
The light from the screens could mess with your eyesight.
The narrative generally goes like this. The modern world is full of artificial light sources, screens, LED bulbs, headlights, and they tend to emit a higher proportion of short wavelength light.
The first problem with your cell phone and other mobile devices is this thing called blue light.
And supposedly, that blue light irritates the body, causing things like eye strain, stress, and sleep disruption.
Artificial light at night from cell phones and iPads and computer screens is suppressing your melatonin production and keeping you awake.
You'll start to even feel sleepy if you're not used to the glasses.
The solutions suggested for us are glasses that filter out this supposedly harmful blue and sometimes also green light. Dozens of prominent influencers have bought into this and made the efficacy of these blue blocking glasses a perceived truism by the public.
You don't need blue blocking glasses. There's no way I would use it as a therapeutic tool to help people sleep better.
The thing that we have to always return to is the science.
The only way people are going to understand whether blue blocking glasses work or not is that they start to have that experience of seeing data, seeing these different studies and learning some of these concepts.
To understand where all this comes from, we have to go back a few decades. In the early 70s, scientists blasted rats with super bright fluorescent light and found it damaged their retinas. Blue light, being short wavelength and high energy, looked suspicious, especially since UV was already known to harm human eyes. Now, rats aren't humans. Their eyes are more sensitive to blue light damage, but still, the findings raised concerns about overexposure to intense blue-rich light from the sun. In space, this light is unfiltered and even harsher. So in the 80s, NASA developed lenses to protect astronauts' eyes from both UV and blue light. Enter Joe Sugarman, an entrepreneur and copywriting legend, a guy who saw an opportunity in space glasses. In 1986, he launched BluBlocker to bring that upgraded eye protection down to Earth.
The original BluBlocker sunglasses block 100% of the ultraviolet and blue light.
His ads warn that blues aren't good for us. It's not only UV, it's this harmful, depressing blue color that should be avoided.
BluBlocker sunglasses, they're really different.
My name is Geek. I put them on as a shocker. Man, I love these BluBlockers.
It's a little surprise these glasses made their way into the public eye.
We heard that there was a ranch in New Zealand that had a sheep that insisted on wearing BluBlockers.
We got one sheep here that just won't take them off. Its name's Blocker.
Now, there's another storyline to follow as well, one about circadian research. Scientists already knew that melatonin helps regulate our internal clock and sleep. The extent to which melatonin actually determines sleep quality was still unknown, though, and remains debated to this day. Nonetheless, melatonin rises at night and drops during the day. Light sets this rhythm, at least in most animals. But humans were thought to be special and tuned by social cues instead. That was until the early 80s, when experiments proved that bright light at night suppresses human melatonin as well, just like in animal models.
That finding, which we published in Science in 1986, and a follow-up paper also in Science in 1989, really demonstrated for the first time that the human circadian clock could be reset by light.
Light came to be known as the master cue, or Zeitgeber, for the human internal clock. Then, in the 90s, Charles Zeisler, with colleagues, made a discovery so groundbreaking that journals rejected it for 5 years.
Some blind people, their internal circadian clock can be shifted by light that they can't see. In the same way, the ear has two functions. One is for hearing and the other is for balance. Also, the eye has two functions. One is for seeing each other and the other is for circadian photoreception, or resetting this internal clock.
Could light really set the rhythms of blind people? That was a controversial question. It made little sense, unless there was some unknown cell in the eye just sitting there to detect light, like a light meter. Those people aren't really blind, they're lying, said one of the journal's editors. But it was real.
There's a third photoreceptor system, light-sensitive system within the eye. There's the visual cells, the rods and the cones. There's a layer of cells called the ganglion cells. Their axons form the optic nerve, and they send light-dark information into the brain. 1 out of every 100 of those ganglion cells is directly sensitive to light using a photopigment called melanopsin, or OPN4, and that pigment is maximally sensitive to blue light.
And that discovery kicked off the blue light sleep narrative. The thinking was simple. If these cells respond most strongly to blue light, then blue light should send the strongest signal to the brain to suppress melatonin. By the early 2000s, studies started to back this up. Blue light was indeed the most potent wavelength for suppressing melatonin in humans. Green light, too, showed some acute effects, just less intense. Daylight is rich in blue, then shifts warmer as the sun sets, eventually fading into darkness. That change signals the brain that it's time to start making melatonin. From this, two ideas began to take shape. First, the well-established core mechanism. Light suppresses melatonin, and blue wavelengths do it the most. Second, what happens if melatonin is suppressed at the wrong time?
Working nights is bad for your gut and bad for your brain.
By the mid-2000s, scientists were warning that shift work posed serious health risks. And melatonin suppression might be part of the problem. Night shift workers are awake and active during their biological nighttime, often under bright lights when the body expects darkness and rest. As a result, melatonin stays low at the very time it should be peaking. Shift work is the extreme case of circadian disruption. Irregular schedules, chronic sleep loss, and activity clashing with biology all take a toll.
Night shift workers tend to report an increased rate of depression, of anxiety, of cancer, of diabetes, of cardiovascular disease, and of weight gain.
But light exposure was the one factor you could control. So researchers asked, if you can't dim the lights, could you filter them instead? In 2005, Leonid Kayamov and colleagues ran a small study with 19 participants in a simulated night shift setting. The goal was to see if amber-tinted glasses could protect melatonin without making people drowsy, so night workers could stay alert on the job. It turns out that they could. The glasses preserved melatonin levels just as well as dimming the lights and did not make participants sleepy. These goggles were designed for a very specific situation, helping shift workers protect melatonin when they had to stay awake under bright lights they couldn't dim. This is the exact opposite of the claimed sleep benefits of BluBlockers today, and yet similar glasses were already being sold for everyday use for sleep. So how did a tool for shift workers to stay awake end up being repackaged as a sleep aid for everyone? Well, another hypothesis was starting to spread. If blue light suppresses melatonin, and melatonin is linked to sleep, then blue light must harm sleep. No one had tested it yet, but it sounded believable, almost like an obvious link. Melatonin is often called the sleep hormone, and screens were giving off that same blue light. And if that's true, then blocking blue light with special glasses might help you sleep better. At the same time, BluBlockers were stepping into another storyline, eye health. Rising screen time brought growing concerns about eye strain, and the worry shifted from the sun's intense rays to much dimmer light from screens. Same culprit, new context. A remix of Joe Sugarman's original pitch.
Kids complaining about headaches, tired eyes, blurry vision. It's the hours staring at the computer screen that may be triggering the problem for many.
2007, Joe Croft and Jennifer Mickelson found Gunnar Optics and launched yellow-tinted glasses promising eye strain relief for gamers and office workers. Gunnar attempted to back their claims with 2 small studies. Both were funded through a grant to a research team at Pacific University's College of Optometry. The first one, back in 2007, found that users said they felt less eye strain fatigue compared to placebo lenses. But a follow-up study, just a year later, found no significant differences. But despite the mixed and contradictory evidence, they caught on with the tech crowd and became accepted by some chronic computer users. Blue light became a universal health concern. Bad for eyes, bad for sleep, sleep, bad for everyone. In 2009, Michael and Lorna Hoff launched Flux, a free app that adjusts screen color based on the time of day. Towards the end of the decade, Kimberly Burkhart and James Phelps ran the first small randomized trial on BluBlockers for sleep, this time as a potential aid for insomnia, using glasses from an online retailer. Participants wore either amber, blue-blocking glasses, or yellow, placebo glasses for 3 hours before bed. After 2 weeks, the BluBlocker group reported better sleep quality. But how much of it stands up to scrutiny? The results were based on self-reported sleep quality, subjective and easily influenced by mood, expectations, or the placebo effect. This is why the gold standard in sleep research still relies on biometric, device-driven measurements.
Polysomnography, poly means multiple, so many, and somnography means the measurement of sleep. Looking at what we call the gold standard, the best way of measuring sleep is applying EEG electrodes to the scalp. They look at a section of brainwave activity and they make an assessment, is that person awake or asleep? And if they're asleep, how deep is that sleep? That is the best measurement.
Let's recall that this study was on people who had severe trouble falling asleep. So this study only applies to them, not to people just trying to optimize their sleep. As we head into the 2010s, LEDs are everywhere, and screens are becoming inseparable from our daily lives. And with that came warnings many of us know all too well.
Exactly what is computer vision syndrome and how does it manifest itself?
Our tablets, our smartphones, and our flat screens, they give off blue light, and that blue light can cause harm to our vision, such as digital eye strain, headaches, dryness of the eyes, and blurred vision.
Researchers show that melatonin suppression depends not just on the wavelength of light, but also on its brightness. The brighter the light at night, the more melatonin gets suppressed. Now, the effect of blue light was still real. It did suppress melatonin more than any other wavelength, but the evidence that melatonin suppression impaired sleep was not there yet. And while people were already talking about light ruining sleep, it still hadn't been well tested, especially for screen light.
And this was probably in the early 2010s. You look at the research and it's like no one's actually tested this. No one's actually looked at this blue and rich light that comes from a screen and does it actually make it difficult to fall asleep.
To investigate this further, Michael Gradisar's team ran one of the first studies of its kind. 16 teens used screens at full brightness, dimmed, or with blue light filters for 1 hour before bed.
Going from a fully dim screen to a bright screen was only a magnitude of taking 3 to 4 minutes longer to fall asleep. That's nothing. It just wasn't bright enough to really impact sleep in our study, and that was in 2014. Blue and green can be more potent at suppressing melatonin, changing the phase of the circadian rhythm, but it's got to be bright enough.
Blue light or not, it has to be bright enough to make a difference.
Over the subsequent decade, our findings were confirmed by other researchers, but this misunderstanding about the brightness really took off on the internet and just became viral.
That's why when light is used to deliberately shift the circadian rhythm, it's made intensely bright. Screen light doesn't even come close.
When you compare what we do with bright light therapy, which can be sort of around minimum 500 lux, 1,000 lux, definitely going outside, which is like you're getting tens of thousands of lux. When we were measuring the lux on an iPad, it was around about 50 to 80 lux.
Unfortunately, Michael Gradisar's study didn't get much attention at the time. The spotlight went to another study, one that got so much press, people are still talking about it today.
I saw a study a little while ago, I don't know whether it ever got replicated, looking at e-readers.
It came out of Harvard, authored by Anne-Marie Chang, with the renowned Charles Zeisler on the team. 12 participants spent 5 nights reading before bed. E-readers versus paper books. E-readers. Now that's a confusing term. Today, an e-reader is thought of as a Kindle, an e-ink device. E-ink is not a screen, but rather capsules of fluid that are aligned electromagnetically. E-ink is more like an Etch-a-Sketch than an iPhone. The text or image on the e-reader does not emit light and does not even require power to stay visible. Kindles do have lights, but the light is not needed to read the text if there is ambient light like the sun or a lamp. Now these details matter because everyone calls this the Harvard e-reader study, but what they actually used were early iPads, bright tablets, not e-ink displays, not Kindles. The results of this study showed that the so-called e-reader group took longer to fall asleep, showed greater melatonin suppression, had less REM sleep, and woke up feeling a little less rested. The headlines exploded. Screens ruin your sleep, and blue light is to blame.
The biggest issue with that study is that it hasn't been replicated, but it has been promoted like you wouldn't believe.
Blue light from electronics at night interferes with sleep and has also been linked
linked to cancer.
It's really hard to make an assessment on a single study. In terms of that story about having a screen in the hour before bed that suppresses melatonin, there's the nighttime hormone that's going to make it difficult to fall asleep, is all of that is shite if you got enough bright light in the afternoon, especially going outdoors. But it could also happen if you've got significantly bright light indoors.
But when we lifted the veil, several methodological red flags stood out. The smaller issues start with things like posture, ergonomics, and reading material. All these were not being controlled for, and all of them are potentially able to stimulate the nervous system and confound results. But what stood out more was the experimental environment itself. Participants were essentially confined to light-proof inpatient hospital rooms in order to allow for invasive physiological measurements. Their daytime light exposure was limited to only around 90 lux, far dimmer than natural daylight, and even below typical indoor lighting. Then, the 4-hour reading periods took place in near total darkness, around 3 lux, with the screen group reading at full brightness the entire time. That's full brightness of an iPad. 4 hours staring directly into a light source that is 10 times brighter than ambient. 3 lux is equivalent to 1 candle. 30 lux is a tablet at max brightness. Does that sound comfortable to you? Does that sound like something realistic? Beyond the artificiality of the setting, conditions like that can make the melatonin system more sensitive to light exposure. The results, the melatonin suppression was clear, but the resulting sleep disruption was only very modest. That alone challenges the assumption that suppressing melatonin necessarily means worse sleep. But the biggest issue was that the study didn't directly test blue light. It compared bright, so-called e-readers, iPads, to paper books, with blue light only suggested as a possible causative mechanism, without actually testing the narrow band of blue light. Still, the media confidently pinned the blame on blue light. The core takeaway from the Harvard study, as we see it, is that it was done under extreme, unrealistic conditions that just don't apply to the real world.
And if you are actually just doing normal activities where you're getting exposure to light in the latter part of the day, that you don't see this significant melatonin suppression.
But the media went with a simpler, much more dramatic story. Screens and blue light steal your sleep. For businesses, selling ways to block blue light was an obvious goldmine.
And so we find that people don't sleep as well when they're looking at TVs, computers, phones, things like that.
Now we enter the BluBlocker arms race. 2015, Swanwick launches their sleep glasses.
Wear a pair of blue light blocking glasses like these Swannies and your sleep will improve dramatically.
2016, Apple jumps on board with Night Shift.
iPhones now have a way for you to tone that light down that allows users to set a time to give off less blue light before bed.
Same year, Swanwick gets on Dave Asprey's podcast and pulls in around $1 million in the first year of sales.
First of all, I actually saw you wearing your kind of orange tinted glasses about 18 months ago, and I never really delved into it too much. I just thought there's some biohack going on with Dave, and that's cool. He's just the weird bulletproof guy, and that's all right. I don't really understand it.
If you're unfamiliar, Dave Asprey is a tech guy who reinvented himself as a health expert and became one of the early pioneers of profitable biohacking. He struck gold with butter and coconut oil coffee, part of his so-called bulletproof diet. He would grow into a grand wizard of the health grift, with overpriced supplements, courses, and pseudoscience-filled conferences. He would also join the BluBlocker crowd with his true dark glasses, inventing his own reality with a concept called junk light.
And what I do to control junk light is I use true dark glasses. What they are is optically defined filters that block out certain portions of blue light but allow enough of this light spectrum through to tell my brain it's daytime.
Apparently, you must now protect yourself from all forms of artificial light at all times of the day.
We replace things like natural sunlight or incandescent light or heck even lamplight with junk light in an effort to save money.
And of course, you need a bundle of different BluBlockers for each time of the day. 2017, an 18-year-old Matt Maruca founds Raw Optics.
Here I have this thing called a spectral color meter. I found there were no really attractive blue blocking glasses on the market that I wanted to wear. So I decided to make blue blockers that I want to wear, and then other people started wanting to buy them, and then now there's several other companies doing the same thing.
Then Swanwick goes all in on influencer marketing.
So I've been sleeping a lot better lately because James got me these Swannies.
They will allow you to block out the dreaded blue light in the hours before you go to sleep, which will help you fall asleep faster and deeper.
It's that easy. Get yourself some Swannies.
And they're just a few of the players. Companies like Block Blue Light and Felix Gray jump in too. What followed was a flood of over-specialized products, Glasses made for every imaginable situation, most of them solving problems that just didn't exist. The glasses come in different colors, and that comes down to what wavelengths they block and how much. Amber, orange, and red lenses block the most blue light and green light. They're the so-called heavy hitters for sleep. Clear lenses, or the computer glasses, usually block only a small slice of blue light. At the time, it was still those clear glasses that dominated the market. Big names like Essilor, Hoya, and Zeiss were all pushing special coatings. Gunnar would pull in over $6 million in revenue, spending most of it on marketing and esports partnerships.
Eyewear for a digital age. Our patented optical technology is the only clinically proven solution for relieving all 4 major symptoms of computer eye strain.
In that same year, 2017, a systematic review found a lack of high-quality evidence for BluBlockers improving vision or relieving eye fatigue or having any eye health benefits at all. The American Academy of Ophthalmology basically said the same thing. They don't recommend BluBlockers for computer use because there's just no solid evidence. At this point, the tension between product marketing and real medical advice is getting hard to miss.
The computer dose of blue light is vanishingly small.
Several months ago, the College of Optometrists in the UK published this finding. The best evidence currently available does not support the use of blue-blocking lenses to improve visual performance, alleviate symptoms of eye fatigue or visual discomfort, or improve sleep quality.
And the need for blue-blocking lenses when you're using your computer, watching your television under normal lighting inside is absolutely unnecessary.
In 2017, Boots opticians were fined £40,000 for misleading blue light protection claims. By the late 2010s, nearly every eyewear retailer and online glasses shop was hawking some version of the BluBlocker.
Some insurance plans will actually cover the blue light glasses if you go through them.
It's a new thing, and it's all over the internet. I can't even open up, any website without, hey, maybe you want to buy these blue light blocking lenses.
In 2018, an Australian survey found that 75% of optometrists were prescribing these lenses, even though half acknowledged that there was limited evidence to support their use. Thousands of doctors were ignoring the evidence and choosing to sell an unproven, so-called therapy to their patients. BluBlockers were making so much money, even the doctors were getting in on the grift. Misinterpret the science, amplify the fear, sell the solution. It's a pattern we've seen before, we'll keep seeing again and again in this story. By the late 2010s, media coverage was growing confusingly split. BluBlockers were trending products that demanded coverage. But at the same time, some media figures and prominent doctors were starting to question how these claims became so widespread without good evidence.
Is blue light from your screens harmful?
No, it's not. And I don't know where that's come from and why it's taken off so much, because it's not data-driven. I can't fault them because I'm sure they're getting a little info sheet that says, you know what, here's 3 talking points about blue light blocking lenses.
And the misinformation was just impossible to stop.
A recent study published in the Journal of Molecular Vision says that exposure to blue light can cause macular degeneration and eventual blindness after enough exposure.
We found the study mentioned here. The authors actually described the link between blue light and eye damage as inconclusive, and they challenge the extreme claims about blue light causing age-related macular degeneration. But let's not forget that many of those claims are based just on animal studies, not even on humans. Often, these setups use intense, focused light beamed straight into the eye, sometimes at levels even brighter than staring at the sun. And it's not only these misleading interpretations. If you keep listening to this TEDx talk, you're going to notice a subtly placed promotion for Swanwick BluBlockers.
Wear your sunglasses at night. Blue light blocking sunglasses like these Swannies stop the melatonin-robbing blue light from ever entering your eye.
In 2018, Swanwick did a validation study, and since then they proudly claim to be the most so-called scientifically validated blue light glasses on the market. The study, claiming Swannies improve sleep, was done by Sleepscore Labs, a company paid to run such validation studies. Swanwick is one of their partners, and Sleepscore has been promoting the glasses since at least 2017. Interestingly, one of Sleepscore's founding partners was the Dr. Oz show, and Dr. Oz himself is a Swannies affiliate.
If I talked about specific companies selling high-quality products, it would seem like I was supporting those companies. And so I never gave them, the audience, an idea of where to go to buy the stuff.
These cool-looking glasses actually filter out the blue lights.
I need that.
They look good on you. Try them on. They filter out the blue lights. That's a look. That's a look.
The website makes it sound like both subjective and objective sleep numbers improved, like falling asleep 11 minutes faster.
You could see the difference in the time taken to fall asleep. It looked like seconds.
But that claim, 11 minutes faster, came from self-reports. Participants thought back to how they'd slept over the last month, then wore the glasses for another month, and afterwards estimated their sleep again. That 11 minutes faster was simply how they felt they slept. No control group, just memory-based before and after.
I don't think it's that great of a measure because of that memory recall bias. It asked you, on average, how long does it take you to fall asleep in the past month? I don't know what I did last Tuesday, let alone in the past month. I really can't tell you.
If the objective biometric measures showed virtually nothing, but people felt they slept better after wearing tinted glasses, doesn't that sound a lot like a placebo effect? By 2019, the global BluBlocker market had grown to almost $2 billion. Gunnar, already pulling in 6 to 8 million from computer glasses, saw the opportunity and added amber sleep glasses to their lineup.
One new item that you might put on your kids' back to school list is blue light blocking glasses. Have you heard of those?
It's why blue light blocking glasses have become so popular.
Blue blocking lenses to protect our eyes and promote sleep.
By 2020, the science was tearing holes in the BluBlocker narrative. Its sales were only going up. By the time COVID hit, with our isolated lives glued to screens, online searches for BluBlockers hit their peak.
Parents are buying blue light blocking glasses to protect their children's eyes from increased screen time in lockdown.
And this was happening while study after study kept finding nothing. In a controlled trial with 120 participants, Sumir Singh and colleagues found no difference in eye strain. Blue glasses or clear ones, people's eyes felt just as tired. A major review drove the point home. There was nothing uniquely beneficial about blue light glasses.
A new study says blue light glasses don't actually do much, but researchers at the University of Melbourne in Australia looked at things like visual performance, retina protection, and sleep quality in 17 separate trials. The study found using blue light filtering lenses did not reduce eye strain associated with computer use and did not affect sleep quality either.
The sleep claims weren't doing any better. In 2021, a study with 167 young adults tested Apple's Night Shift. It reduced blue light, but didn't improve sleep. Another blow to the blue light hypothesis. Still, companies found ways to keep selling their so-called science-backed solutions. In 2022, Whoop jumped on board not only with daytime lenses, but also with sleep ones. They promoted benefits backed by their internal testing no one outside the company can actually check. And even if you were to take them at face value, the results boil down to glasses being associated with a 1.3 beats per minute drop in nighttime heart rate. That's an $80 device or a 2% change. Or to be precise, associated with a change. It's marketing speak. Without a control group, blinding, or published data, they can't claim causation. So the blue light sleep narrative was falling apart, and with it, Matthew Walker soon abandoned his previous stance on screen light.
We used to think it was the blue light from tablets and screens.
The research that made Matthew Walker change his mind came from Dr. Michael Gradisar, another sleep researcher we were fortunate enough to talk to and to learn a lot from.
In my book some years ago, I was more than declarative how the light from screens was the main problem when it comes to sleep.
The more I read about the studies that were failing to find sleep changes, and then the more I read Michael Gradisar's epic work on this hypothesis of sleep disruption does not hold up.
So we did a review looking at all the different mechanisms when it comes to screens and sleep. If you give someone a screen that is emitting blue light in the hour or hours before bed, we don't see, could even say, a significant extension to the time taken to fall asleep. If we averaged all of those studies, there was about 11 in our review. You're only talking about a few minutes longer. In the context of things, that's not enough. The difference in the time taken to fall asleep was about a minute, and it's incredible when you really look at that particular metric with all of these studies. How much longer did it take to fall asleep having the worst possible device in your face? You've really got a range somewhere between -8 to almost 10 minutes. It's really this sort of movement around zero.
My new hypothesis has become, it's not the blue light that is the problem, it's the stimulus that often comes with the blue light.
I think regardless of what color light you're getting your Instagram on,
that's probably not helpful before you go to bed.
This is the point where we can lay out all these different narratives. So like Matthew Walker, Peter Attia, and others, you can decide for yourself. Narrative 1, the classic BluBlocker model. Blue light suppresses melatonin, and that hormonal change disrupts sleep. So in theory, blocking blue light should work as a sleep aid. That's the narrative every company selling these glasses wants you to believe.
Well, I know they do jack shit if you are looking at a screen in the dark. Is there any other situations where they could be helpful for shift workers, night shift workers? I'm still highly skeptical that these would be therapeutic enough. So I fail to see from those experiences that we've had in all of these clinical trials how blue blocking glasses even prevent those effects on the circadian rhythm.
Narrative 2. This model looks not just at wavelength, but also at brightness. In this model, all bright lights, like the LEDs around us, can suppress melatonin. Even if you block all the blue light, other wavelengths, greens, yellows, even reds, can still activate the light-sensitive cells in the eye. Blue blockers essentially offer nothing more than what you'd get with normal sunglasses or by simply dimming the lights. Nonetheless, narrative 2 still suggests that melatonin suppression acutely affects your sleep.
The replication of melatonin suppression has been consistent. Does it really change your sleep? And the evidence now, I think, is in favor of probably not very much. I think what we need to do is disambiguate and separate sleep disruption from melatonin suppression. There's still very good evidence that blue light suppresses melatonin from whatever source. I don't necessarily think that that means that you get sleep disruption.
Then there's narrative 3. This model says that blue light from screens, which are rarely used at full brightness before bed, can lower melatonin, but that lowering melatonin does not meaningfully affect time taken to fall asleep or the architecture of sleep.
It's that they are attention capture devices, and they are fiendishly good at fleecing you of your attention economy. And they have spent hundreds of millions of dollars designing these to be ultra engaging. The effect on your sleep, I think it is very, very small. I don't think the effect of these devices on your sleep is very small. I think it's quite substantive. The effects of blue light are well overblown.
I'm hearing Matt still saying it's about the attention-seeking sort of stuff, and that is partly true, but I think people are going to start to listen to this as what you do on the screen, and that's not the mechanism that we've found. Does a screen in the hour before bed make it difficult to fall asleep? At the moment, after about 11 studies, I would say no, it does not make it difficult to fall asleep.
But there's a fourth narrative. This model proposes that melatonin suppression and cognitive stimulation both only play minor roles. The real driver of sleep disruption is the interplay of age, physiology, genetics, and psychology that shape a person's susceptibility to having their bedtime disrupted. Every individual has a sleep phenotype, which means they respond differently to stimulation and require different routines before bed.
People keep using these things beyond their bedtime. There are certain people that are vulnerable to it depending upon their personality. They get into a flow state, pushing past the bedtime, a difference sometimes of up to 90 minutes versus 3 or 4 minutes because of a bright screen.
Michael has got this well in hand. You asked me to bet my, modest mortgage on it. I'm going with Michael's data. Figure out a wind down routine. The reason that most people are struggling with sleep has nothing to do with blue light necessarily. It's stress and anxiety.
Some people will find focusing on a source of stimulation relaxing, and this would explain why some people actually fall asleep easily to TV or reading, while those with different phenotypes are kept awake by those same devices.
People can find a way to regulate their own bedtime. You can enjoy watching a screen, even a 65-inch TV.
Cholesterol from eggs and red meat was once seen as a universal cause for heart disease. We now know that genetics play a huge part. With sleep, something similar is happening. The science is pointing towards a more complicated, more individualized reality.
Go to bed at the same time. 1 hour before bed, set an alarm. When that alarm goes off, switch off almost all of the lights in your house. You'll be surprised at how soporific that really is.
But if despite all this counter evidence, you still think, okay, maybe the science isn't solid, but these glasses helped me, or maybe they helped my friend or my family, what makes narrative 4 compelling is that it actually offers a mechanism by which we can explain how some people do feel better after adding blue blockers to their routine.
So many people will say, I'm putting these things on and it's having a benefit to me.
We're not dismissing personal experience, but we are here to tell you that whatever good blue blockers have done for you, it's not because they block blue light. You are being lied to, and you're probably wasting your money.
I, again, don't think it's about the blue light. Putting these glasses on, I start to get a change in the sensitivity of nightness versus dayness.
It is by introducing the ritual of donning a special, vision-distorting set of glasses that users of blue blockers can become primed for sleep. This is a psychological mechanism. The effect is not happening because you believe it works, though, but rather because it creates an altered state of perception that is associated with sleep.
Once I put these blue light blocking glasses on, my brain is designed to think, oh, this is now my nighttime wind down routine.
This is a form of conditioning that can be achieved with scent, with sound, dimming the lights, normal sunglasses, or by wearing a cardboard cutout of glasses on your face.
The mechanism by which it's helping your sleep, I don't think has anything to do with blue light block. All of these influencers don't really have training or a knowledge of the literature. They're clearly being paid to endorse a product.
These products are running on the outdated idea that blue light puts the brakes on melatonin production, which disrupts sleep, and that blue blockers can serve as a way to avoid that sleep disruption. There are simpler, zero cost to consumer ways to achieve the same effect. Zero cost to consumer. Where have we heard that before?
Zero cost to consumer information about science and science-related tools to the general public.
We've got now scientists starting to move away, almost like a scientist drift. We have this thing in psychology called a therapist drift when therapists start to sort of move away from the evidence base. And now I'm starting to see scientists doing that.
The moment you've all been waiting for. Peak grift. By 2024, there was no star shining brighter among wellness influencers than that of Andrew Huberman.
Rogan is the entry point for many people skyrocketing to fame.
Tell people what you do.
So I'm a neuroscientist, professor of neurobiology and ophthalmology at Stanford School of Medicine. So I run a laboratory.
The following is a conversation with Andrew Huberman, a neuroscientist at Stanford.
Look at you now. I mean, you started Huberman Lab. This podcast, it was in 2021. It's become giant. It's the #1 health and fitness podcast in the world.
When he was just a Stanford professor, when I first knew him, there were guardrails. After he became one of the most famous podcasters in the world, he was then signed by the William Morris Agency. And from there, he was connected with people like Kim Kardashian and Brian Johnson. You all see them having dinner parties together.
Earlier that year, on Peter Attia's podcast, he was actually still skeptical of blue blockers.
If you're going to wear blue blockers, and I don't think they're necessary, but if you're going to wear them, you'd want to wear them at night.
But by the year's end, he'd done a complete 180.
He took a really bad sponsor and faked his science directly.
Now, we're not here to talk about Huberman's sex abuse scandal or his long-term support of the green powder full of lead that is the AG1 scam. He wasn't the only one.
Athletic greens.
This is about blue blockers. In June of 2022, at the crazy height of Huberman's subscriber growth, ROKA hired Huberman as a scientific advisor. This began a 2-year warm-up period where Huberman would promote ROKA's glasses alongside AG1 in his ad breaks. When a podcaster stops to talk about their sponsors with timestamps ready-made to skip the ad, the audience should know the drill. But then it all changed. After the firestorm of Huberman's sex scandal and a whiff of getting canceled, Huberman would cross the Rubicon to cash in and go from your typical sponsor ad break to an all-in
These ROKA wind-down lens glasses.
Slap his name on it.
Enter the code Huberman.
Deal with the devil.
After a sex scandal, the ROKA deal sort of becomes an opportunity for him, and he noticed the ability to make quite a bit of money selling something in his core expertise, these blue blocking glasses that he knows probably don't work.
We got to get you some of the red lens glasses. I'm not doing a promotional here, but getting the screens dim or wearing red lens glasses in the evening to block the blue and green lights. ROKA and I designed these glasses, which as you can see have red lenses that filter out the specific short wavelengths of light that activate the cells that wake you up. You can see in the environment you're in. You don't have to change the indoor lighting.
When I saw that Huberman had released his sponsorship with ROKA, I started working on it the next day because it was just so blatantly crazy that he was undermining himself so obviously.
Suddenly, there's no need to dim the lights. The magic glasses would do it all. But what's the difference? According to Huberman, it's an extra sliver of green light.
They don't just blue block, they block all the short wavelength light, including the blues and the greens that come from those white LED lights, as well as any lights that actually appear blue or green.
Tinted lenses aren't a new thing. bright light is still bright light, and the science hasn't changed. You won't find an explanation for the shift, either in ROKA's thin evidence list nor in the current scientific literature.
Before the ROKA deal, Huberman had what we can call plausible deniability. You could say that because his specific expertise was in neuroanatomy and ophthalmology, he can take whoever sponsor he wants because maybe he just doesn't know what the grifty business plan is behind it.
Old Huberman, who was making these statements about light and circadian rhythm and so forth, it was like his old version is correct. The new version is absolutely incorrect. So it's almost like what happened to him.
Fame happened to Huberman. He has vastly gone beyond his expertise.
Premium tools not released anywhere else. Please go to hubermanlab.com/premium.
Huberman's glasses launched a whole new generation of BluBlocker claims.
Wearing red lens glasses such as these can keep what's called your cortisol, a stress hormone, low. They also have a very nice calming effect if you put them on in the evening after sundown. Wearing these for even just a few minutes, you'll feel calmer, a bit sleepy, not super sleepy.
The main idea is that blue light raises evening cortisol, so blocking it or switching to red lights keeps cortisol low and helps you wind down. We combed through the research and found no published studies showing blue light blockers lowering evening cortisol. The few studies that do compare blue and red light's effects on cortisol mostly look at mornings. In the morning, cortisol is actually supposed to be high. By evening, the research is scarce and inconsistent. Some studies show no effect, others show increases in cortisol from both red and blue light. So where did these claims come from? Most likely they come from oversimplifying morning cortisol research, or just by misinterpreting shift work studies.
What Huberman does is he looks at data that's not agreed upon, that's not settled, that's very preliminary, and then he extrapolates extraordinary conclusions.
And often that cherry-picked study is also in conflict with the, thousands of other studies on the same topic.
We traced Huberman's claims to what's likely the source.
The study I'd like to emphasize in this context is entitled Red Light, a novel non-pharmacological
Not only does shift work data not apply to healthy people trying to optimize their sleep, but the study he cited never published any cortisol research, a fact stated clearly in the abstract. We double-checked and then checked again. We also contacted the authors, who confirmed that the cortisol data isn't available and was never published, and that preliminary analysis shows no differences at all. Which means those claims weren't just unsupported, they appear to have been made up. So the entire cortisol pitch and the health advice built on it seems to rest on science that doesn't exist.
In his specific field at the top university in America, he has to know this whole field of blue blocking glasses is bullshit because he said it beforehand.
And in the evening, you don't need to wear blue blockers, you just simply should dim the lights.
I first got alerted in 2022 when he was making these claims about magnesium threonate. I could not find any study supporting what he was saying, and I thought I was doing something wrong.
2 supplements in particular have been shown to be effective for shortening the transition time to sleep and allowing people to ease into sleep more readily. And those are magnesium threonate, which is interchangeable with magnesium bisglycinate.
And then over time I realized he was being deceptive, and that's not what we do. We don't make shit up.
By now, many influencers were pushing blue blockers into the spotlight. Brian Johnson, for example, is here casually chatting with Whoop's CEO.
I'm going to send you a pair.
Okay, please. Yeah, I didn't know you had it.
We came out with them a few months ago. I'm going to send you our new Whoop blue light blocking glasses.
I'm pumped about that. You told me that before. I'm holding you to
we
that.
spent a long time actually researching the right tint.
Ben Greenfield would leave Swanwick for raw optics and hot swap one grift for another.
If you see me wearing blue light blocking glasses, 9 times out of 10, I'm wearing the raw optics version.
Just as the science was turning sharply and definitively against the blue light hypothesis, the BluBlocker cartel scrambled to invent new claims. Whole new paradigms of absurd reasons to buy their tinted glasses.
I like to call indoor LED lighting birth control lighting.
Claims that blue light causes reproductive harm, claims that blue light causes ADHD, and even claims that putting on tinted glasses can put you in a meditative state.
So 15 minutes of wearing the True Dark glasses for sleep, your brainwaves shift like you've just sat there meditating without having to meditate.
We tracked down that paper, which was no easy task, since it wasn't referenced anywhere. And of course, the paper itself said nothing about meditative states.
When people get famous and they have the opportunity to make millions of dollars, they have also the opportunity to make an ethical stand.
As a scientific group of intellectuals, the thing that we have to always return to is the science.
I was in a position earlier this year where I could receive commission putting my name next to blue blocking glasses. If I'm going to put my name to it, it has to say this is the situation where it will be beneficial, but I just could not find any.
Just like Michael, I've had at least 2 very lucrative offers to endorse or be a brand partner, and every time I've chosen not to do that. The biggest virtue I have as a public intellectual is my integrity. That's why I just don't do those types of endorsements. I'm a scientist, I'm not a salesman.
You don't need blue blocking glasses. There's no way I would use it as a therapeutic tool to help people sleep better.
How many times are we going to let these orange goggles get rebranded and regurgitated back at us before we just call a spade a spade? Blue blockers are a scam. They're not the biggest wellness scam, and certainly not the worst. No one's going to die from blue blockers unless they choke on a pair. But blue blockers have been one of the most widely accepted myths among the rogues gallery of scams. And if we keep buying into the myth, we are just going to reward a corrupt bargain between ruthless entrepreneurs and influencers waiting to sell their souls.
We've got one sheep here that just won't take them off. Its name's Blocker.
And as for us, we'd be little better than Blocka, the sheep. There's got to be a better way. There's got to be a way to walk the tightrope of ethical influence. This is what we're going to explore on this channel and eventually attempt as a company. Entero is a for-profit tech startup. I live to build things, and for very personal reasons, I have chosen to build in healthcare. I don't really enjoy selling things. I want to deliver technology while delivering a truthful message to the medium I love, which is film. But we need your help to figure out how to do this well. So if you support our thesis, like, subscribe, and wade into those comments. Until next time.